The Organization of American States joins the worldwide condemn against Ecuador after the violent assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito. Ecuador's former Vice President Jorge Glas, detained in a maximum security prison, is on hunger strike after his arrest during the assault on the Mexican embassy. And Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assured that Israel would be punished for its mistake after the terrorist acts perpetrated by Israel in Syria. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Organization of American States joins the world condemnation received by Ecuador after the violent assault on the Mexican embassy in Quito. The Ecuadorian Foreign Ministry attended on Tuesday an extraordinary meeting held in Washington to address the diplomatic crisis with Mexico. In this context, the arguments of Daniel Noboa's government were not well received by the attendants. A dozen ambassadors who took the floor and agreed on the obligation to respect international law and affirmed that there is no justification to break the inviolability of diplomatic headquarters. The issue will be discussed again in a new extraordinary session convened for April 10th at the request of Colombia and Bolivia.
In light of the serious situation openly contrary to international law that this unthinking and mistaken action by the government of Ecuador brought about, Mr. President, at this session, Bolivia takes due note of the statements made by the Deputy Foreign Minister of the Republic of Ecuador as well as of the two press releases issued by its foreign ministry over the weekend. In that sense, it's expressly stated for the corresponding legal effects that the Ecuadorian authorities confessed the Ecuadorian police's actions on Friday evening, April 5, 2024, at the headquarters of the Mexican embassy in the city of Quito. Ecuador were determined consciously and straightforwardly by the President of Ecuador, Daniel Noboa Acin.
Ecuador's former Vice President Jorge Glas, detained in a maximum security prison, is on a hunger strike after his arrest during the assault on the Mexican embassy. His defense attorney, Sonia Vera, shared on Wednesday a fragment of a video call with Glas, who has been held incommunicado since the day of his capture and was even hospitalized. In the video, Glas tells how he was held by security forces during the raid of the diplomatic headquarters on the night of Friday, April 5th, and affirms that he was beaten. For his part, former President Rafael Correa indicated that the medical emergency that took Glas to a health center on Monday was a suicide attempt. The raid of the diplomatic headquarters in Mexico, which ended with the capture of Glas, was condemned by the international community. However, the Ecuadorian government insists on justifying the act. In Colombia, the prosecutor's office filed an indictment on Tuesday against former President Alvar Uribe as the alleged perpetrator of the crimes of bribery of witnesses in criminal proceedings and procedural fraud, for which he will be called to trial. This is the latest update in a long legal battle in which the Superior Court of Bogotá last ruled in October against filing the case, following a prosecutor's request. The accusation was brought by the first prosecutor before the Supreme Court of Justice, Gilberto Villarreal, who took on a case that dates back to 2012. According to sources from the prosecutor's office, based on the physical evidence and probative elements, it was concluded that there are sufficient grounds to indict Uribe. The prosecutor's office has added that once the judicial distribution process is completed, the hearing for the formalization of the indictment will be held on the date and time set by the judiciary. Upon assuming the case, Prosecutor Villarreal has 90 days to substantiate the accusation against Uribe, a term that will expire on April 15th. Uribe will be able to respond to the process at liberty, as this is the norm in all cases, and the deprivation of liberty is an exceptional measure according to the prosecutor's office. Let's review some facts about Álvaro Uribe. Uribe, aged 71 years old, is a Colombian lawyer, businessman and politician. He was elected President of the Republic of Colombia in 2002 and re-elected in 2006. His government was criticized for human rights violations, vote buying in Congress to approve re-election, interception of phone calls or chuzadas to opponents, also linked to massacres carried out by paramilitaries and the creation of false positives. Uribe is currently facing charges for alleged procedural fraud and bribery. In Argentina, police forces arrested 11 people during the demonstrations that demanded the government of Javier Milei to respond for the non-shipment of food for the soup kitchens and for the modifications in the social plans. Several organizations took to the streets on Wednesday to demand governmental answers to the national situation. The mobilized people demonstrated in rejection of the massive layoffs, the lack of food in soup kitchens, as well as the reduction of labor benefits in the public sector. The demonstrators were repressed by the security forces, who used tear gas and pepper spray, rubber bullets and water tankers. Security agents arrested the people under the excuse of non-compliance with the anti-picketing protocol. In Brazil, a former Justice Ministry official revealed that the key argument in the X-Files scandal promoted by Elon Musk is fraudulent. Our reporter Brian Meyer has more details.
Last week, the owner of a public relations company, author, and operative on the international far right named Michael Shellenberger released a series of communications on Twitter, which he refers to as the Twitter files, purporting to show internal communications between directors of Twitter Brazil and directors of Twitter International. These communications were presented as proof that Brazil was suffering from totalitarianism, that the Brazilian government, especially a Supreme Court justice named Alexandre de Moraes, was persecuting political enemies by filing criminal charges against a Twitter director after he refused to turn over personal information from one of their users. It was shared repeatedly by Elon Musk, the owner of X, who added false claims to it. But today, some chinks in that narrative began to appear as Estela Arana, former employee of the Federal Justice Ministry and a lawyer, revealed that the criminal charges that were filed only happened on one occasion and were directly related to a case filed not by the Supreme Court, but by São Paulo Civil Police's organized crime unit, GEICO, who began politely requesting that the directory of Twitter turn over personal information from one of the leaders of the Primeira Comando do Capital, or PCC, Brazil's most powerful cocaine trafficking mafia, and that after the director refused, they filed a criminal case ordering Twitter to turn over the information. One of the journalists who's been collaborating with Shellenberger on this false narrative, named David Agape, admitted that there seems to have been some imprecision in the documents that were revealed in the so-called Twitter files. Meanwhile, the story is still being used, repeated, retweeted, posted on other social media networks by leaders of far-right political parties like Vox, Chega, AFD, and by Trump allies to create a false narrative that for some reason Brazil has transformed into a communist dictatorship.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. Haitis Transitional Council already has a roadmap. It is an action plan that prioritizes restoring justice, the rule of law, and a constitutional reform. This was announced by the parties, organizations, and alliances that make up the interim body. The Presidential Council and the next consensus government will be in charge of pursuing an agreement on arranging elections, among other top priority issues. According to the document that discloses such decision, the goal of all these initiatives is to put the country back on the path of stability, peace, unity, and progress. On Wednesday, during the Eid al-Fitr ceremony, Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei assured that Israel will be punished for its mistake. Khamenei referred to the Iranian officers and workers killed in terrorist acts perpetrated by Israel in Syria. He recalled that the Persian embassies and consulates are Iranian territory wherever they are. He also highlighted the murderous campaign that has claimed more than 33,000 lives in Gaza, reiterating that Israel and its Western allies should be punished in an exemplary manner. In the same vein, hours earlier, the commander of the Iranian naval force, alAdha Tansiri, called for a coalition of Muslim armies against Israel. In Palestine, citizens are celebrating alAdha, a holiday marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan amid the constant attacks by the Israeli occupation forces against that territory.
The day of Eid al-Fitr, such an important day for the Palestinians, was marred by death, displacements and a humanitarian crisis affecting the country due to the crimes committed by Tel Aviv.
We prayed to God since the first day of the war. We have been displaced. We left our homes and went to Bani Sida. From Bani Sida we went to the schools. The Jews took us out of the schools, and this moment we are making this suite of Eid. Eid al-Fitr has arrived. Thanks to God we are alive here in the tents.
During the Eid al-Fitr holidays, thousands of families only wish for an Israeli ceasefire in the occupied territories so that they can return to their homes.
We pray to God that we can return to our homes and that there is tranquility. The holidays have arrived with the joy of Eid and the culmination of the month of Ramadan, of course. It is not like every year. Actually, we fast the month of Ramadan, but we do not feel the spirit of these occasions. It is not like before.
Amid Israel's threat to occupy Rafah, thousands of Palestinians fear displacement from their shelters and separation from their families.
God protect Rafah, its inhabitants and their homes. In Rafah, we have many friends. We have been in Rafah for some time now. If they invaded, of course we will have to flee to the area we left. We went back to see how the situation is there, and it turns out that everything is destroyed. We had to return.
For millions of Palestinians, the Eid al-Fitr holiday has been for years a day of celebration and family bonding, but sadly, it is now marked by sadness to the death of thousands of innocent Palestinians executed by the hands of Israel.
In Palestine, the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas revealed details of the proposal presented by the mediating countries on a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The proposal negotiated by the United States, Egypt and Qatar for an agreement between the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas and the Israeli occupier consists of 3 phases. These include the rehabilitation of infrastructure and the return of displaced citizens, although the definitive withdrawal of the Tel Aviv regime's troops from the occupied Palestinian territories is not explicit. The Hamas movement indicated that Israel's position does not respond to any of the demands of the Palestinian people and their resistance. In this regard, it added that they will inform the mediators of their response once they have completed their analysis of the proposal in a responsible manner at a national level. On Tuesday, at a press conference at the organization's headquarters in New York, the United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed stated that the international community has lost its moral compass in Gaza.
I will say that for me of great concern is that we have lost our moral compass on Gaza as a humanity, as the international community, and we need to do something about that fast. We're late. There are thousands of children that continue to lose their lives, that live amputated. There are hundreds that we are waiting to come home, hostages I know well.
The President of the United States, Joe Biden, called the Israeli attack on humanitarian workers in the Gaza Strip outrageous and disagreed with its warlike approach. The U.S. President considered that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is making a mistake in the handling of his war against Gaza and its repercussions inside Israel and internationally. Biden also stated that Israel must issue a ceasefire and allow full access to all food and medicine to Gaza for a period of at least 8 weeks. On the other hand, Netanyahu announced that a date has already been set for an incursion of his troops into Rafah, a move that Secretary of State Anthony Blinken assured his country has not been informed of. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The President of the United States, Joe Biden, informed that he is studying the possibility of dropping the case against the journalist and founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. Assange's defense described Biden's declarations as encouraging. However, the U.S. President said that although the possibility is being studied, it does not mean that the U.S. Justice Department will necessarily drop the case against Assange, but that there could be some room for a negotiation. Julian Assange fights extradition to the United States, where he faces 18 federal charges related to the publication of secret documents. This process has been stalled since March after the London High Court said that the United States had to offer assurances that Assange would not face the death penalty. The European Commission carried out an analysis of forest fire frequency and damage in 2023. The investigation also included the wildfire impact on the continent's economy. According to a report based on data provided by the European Forest Fire Information System, 2023 saw the largest fire season in Europe since the 1980s. In 2023, more than 500,000 hectares ended up destroyed, placing it among the 4 worst scenarios of the century. Meanwhile, so far in 2024, there have been almost twice as many forest fires amid droughts and high temperatures. On Wednesday, floods engulfed cities and towns across Russia after Europe's third longest river burst its banks. The Ural River floodings are forcing about 110,000 people to evacuate Orenburg city area. The governor, Sergei Salmin, declared that the water exceeded the limit of 996 centimeters and assured that life support systems are operating normally. More than 2,000 orchards were flooded, while 865 people were evacuated from the city due to threats of flooding. Also, the Russian Ministry of Emergency Situations reported that more than 10,400 houses were flooded in 39 regions. Moscow held the International Fair of Intellectual Non-Fiction Literature, which aims at approaching authors of books to their readers and promoting comprehensive human development. Our correspondent Oleg Jasinski provides us for the details.
Reading is one of the most advocated government programs in Russia. From April 4th to 7th, over 40,000 visitors attended the International Spring Non-Fiction Fair arranged at the prestigious Gostiny Dvor Exhibition Center in downtown Moscow.
In 2023, the Non-Fiction Spring Fair had a record number of 40,000 visits for the 4 days it had lasted. In this edition, We can tell we are presenting 19,998 different books.
Some 300 publishing agencies invited literature fans to this space of knowledge through conferences, literary clubs, book presentations, poetry recitals, and scientific talks.
Anyone enthralled by the issues of science, art, international relations will surely find a book of interest here.
I found lots of interesting books to learn from many authors. Even authors themselves come and offer their hardcovers.
We purchase non-fiction books and also other books, even for children. I am a teacher, so I buy something for the little ones.
There is a wide variety. Very enticing titles. Several genres and new authors as well.
One of the most popular stands was TRUD, which means work in Russian, which provided popular science books, biographies of personalities from the world of music, film, arts and literature.
We have all genre books, such as non-fiction or fantasy, children's literature, or any other subject.
A good job is not possible without rest. As the fair lasts 4 days, we create a space for people to have the chance to rest. Sitting with the books they buy and even with screens that show videos related to our literary offerings.
The next book fair is scheduled for upcoming June, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. at the Red Square, where poets and writers will meet their readers again. We'll be glad to be there.
teleSUR, Moscow. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.